Okay, good morning, everybody. Today is Monday, February 25th, 2019 at 9 a.m. We're in room 2450 of the Grant Sawyer building, and I'd like to call the meeting to order and take a roll call. Commissioner Alonso?
Here.
Commissioner Macbeth? Here. Commissioner Hahn by telephone?
Present by phone, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and let the record reflect that Commissioner Alt is not here today, but we do have a quorum before we will proceed. Are there any public comments in the room?
To end the conference recording, press 1. To cancel, press star.
And seeing no public comments in the room, are there any public comments on the phone?
To end the conference recording, press 1. To cancel, press star.
Okay, great. Does this need to be altered as far as the approval of the minutes? No, okay, that's separate. Okay, then I would look for a motion on the approval of the minutes of January 29th, 2019.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting on January 29th.
Great, there's a second? Second. Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great, motion passes unanimously. So we're going to, today on consent agenda, item number 34, we'll be removing that, and new business item number 8 will also be continued. Okay, if there's no questions from any commissioners on the consent agenda, there's a lot here. I've read through it all. If there's no questions, I'd look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, motion passes unanimously. Moving on now to new business, item number 1. The selection of officials and setting of fees to work the March 2nd, 2019 T-Mobile 2019 event at T-Mobile Arena for the UFC light heavyweight title between John Jones and Anthony Smith. Good morning, Executive Director Bennett.
Good morning, Chairman. Nice to see you.
You too.
Thank you.
Don't be nice to me today. Why don't you go ahead and do what you do and read these out for us, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Pleases the Commission for both championship fights. I will read all the officials and fees and sanction and ringside physicians. Okay, for UFC 235, John Jones versus Anthony Smith. Referees to be considered: Herb Dean, Mark Goddard, Mark Smith, and Chris Tagnoni. Judges to be considered: Mike Bell, Derek Clary, Sal Diamato, Dave Hagan, Junichero Camigio, Chris Lee, Ron McCarthy, Glenn Trowbridge, and Tony Weeks. Fees to be paid: $1,900 for the referee, $1,600 for the judges. Ringside physicians to be considered: Dr. Stephen Brown, Al Capana, Joseph Heflin, Ramondo Leone, Brad Lee, Vicky Mazzarano, David Obert, Anthony Rogeroli, David Watson, and Damon Zavala. Recommendation for the referee, championship fight, Herb Dean. Judges recommended: Sal Diamato, Junichero Camigio, and Chris Lee. Doctors, ringside physicians, the lead, Dr. Anthony Rogeroli. The second, Dr. David Watson, and third, Doctors David Obert and David Zavala.
Okay, great. Are there any questions for the Executive Director on his recommendations?
No.
Okay, I look for a motion.
So motion to approve the officials from the Executive Director for UFC fight. Fight 232.
I think a second, I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to new business number 2, selection officials and setting of fees to work the March 2nd, 2019 event at the T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada for the UFC welterweight title between Tyrone Woodley and Kamaru Usman. Excuse me.
Referee recommended Mark Goddard. Judges recommended Mike Bell, Derek Clary, and Dave Hagan. Doctors stayed the same, and the fees are the same, $1,900 for the referee and $1,600 for the judges.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve the officials for UFC welterweight title fight on March 2nd.
Second that motion.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Great, moving on to item number 3, request by Warwick Boxing Promotion for an extension of the time granted to the Commission on March 13th, 2018, per the motion approved a 1-year period to complete 1 trial fight. Morning.
Good morning, Chairman.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Tim O'Reilly with the O'Reilly Law Group, present on behalf of the applicant. With me at the podium is Jack Fulton. I understand Mr. Fulton, as well as Executive Director Bennett, has had some dialogue, including inspection of the hexagon cage. I understand things are moving forward. We were here approximately a year ago in terms of starting this process. We understand at that point in time we had a year to move forward. We've done that. We believe we've done it diligently, so we're in front of you again today asking for an additional 6 months to try to finalize the hexagon, as well as, I think, the inspection and the training of the officials.
Okay. Executive Director Bennett, do you have anything to add on this? Not. Well, I guess if we don't need to make it lengthy for the applicant, I don't want to do that. So if you have anything to add that would help the Commission before they may or may not want to ask any questions.
Yes, Chairman, I'd just like the Chairman and the Commissioners to know that we continue to move forward with this organization, these gentlemen. We have had the referees over there, 3 of them, Tony Weeks, Robert Bird, and Kenny Ballas, along with their Chief Assistant Jeff Mullen, who set it up, as well as myself. We went over some of, we had a couple boxes in the ring with the referees in the hexagon, and we are moving forward with adjusting some of our regulations and health and safety procedures, and we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from any commissioners for the applicant?
Were
Or the Executive Director?
And a question for the Executive Director. Were there any identified concerns in that initial viewing of the hexagon and the fighters?
Yes, Commissioner, to address your previous point, that being should a fighter get punched in the face and the head goes back into the cage, it's very similar to the octagon with the UFC. Is there some danger involved? Yes. Is there any more? It's just a different style of fighting that one has to prepare for. The only possible situation that I see within the hexagon is the way that the pad goes around, the base of the pad goes around, which could twist an ankle of one of the fighters. So we're taking a look at that. Other than that, everything looks to be very productive and as safe as we could possibly make it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Chairman, I'm not sure if my question is for Executive Director, you or our guest, but in honoring the extension, if that motion is granted, when you present when you're ready, I assume it will include all of the answers to the questions that we had the first time around and the progress made, because so I guess I want to understand, when you come forward, what are you prepared to present to us regarding some of the safety, new guidelines, and in response to the preliminary questions and things you've learned along the way. So is that, so I guess maybe I'm asking you, Executive Director, will that be presented and reviewed by you, and then?
We can jointly answer this question because we work together. Yeah. I think that they will need to come forward with some variances to our boxing regulations and MMA regulations, that being there will be a gatekeeper for both sides, unlike boxing where you have a 20 by 20 and the ring ropes are open. So yes, there are some variances that they'll need to come forward for pertaining to these boxing events. And
I agree.
anything?
I agree. I mean, basically, the actually having the referees attend the sparring sessions helped us out a lot. It answered a lot of questions, and mainly the hurdles that I think that we had to get over were how do you officiate in the cage versus in the ring, and whether or not the officials were going to be comfortable moving around. And based on the session that we had, Weeks, Bird, and Bayless seemed to be very comfortable for their first session in the cage. The only thing that was asked of me was, hey, we'd like to come back for maybe a couple more sessions so that we could get more familiar with it. As far as the fighters are concerned, they're comfortable with the platform. They're comfortable with it, they're excited about it because it's actually pressing the action forward, and that's what they want, and that's what the fans want. So with regards to the variances, I mean, I did speak to Jeff about it, and I spoke to Bob about it, and I believe that we're going to be able to get all that figured out by the time we return. Other than, a fighter launching himself off of the cage trying to, throw a Superman punch, there really isn't anything different, that we've seen in sparring and in training. It's just the cage forces the action towards the center, and you cannot fall out of it.
And the base of the...
Real quick, just make sure for the record, give us, for our court reporter, give us your name.
Jack Fulton. I'm the founder and CEO of International Championship Boxing.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. And possibly the base of the hexagon, we may have to work with the padding because it's a little bit slower from what we're accustomed to, as well as collecting the tickets like we would do in an MMA fight based on the cage. You'd have to have a run, but all those need to be have those variances and brought before the chairman and the commissioners. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you have anything else you would like to add, or?
We don't, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Well, Commissioner Alt, do you have anything on the phone?
Han.
I'm sorry, Han.
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. Well then, thank you for the update. Seeing that there's no real objections, I guess we'd look for a motion to approve the request for extension for an additional 6 months.
Yeah, so moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for the update. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Moving on, item number 4, hearing on the extension of the temporary suspension for boxer Ray Perez.
Good morning, Mike Denver from the Attorney General's Office on behalf of the Executive Director, Bob Bennett. In January 2019, respondent Ray Perez was licensed by the Nevada State Athletic Commission as a professional boxer. On January 19, 2019, prior to his contest at the MGM Grand, he submitted a urine sample, the urinalysis of which tested positive for methamphetamine, which is a prohibited stimulant under the WADA prohibited list. Pursuant to NRS 467.117, the Executive Director temporarily suspended the respondent's license on February 17, 2019 for a period of 10 days. It is now being requested that this suspension be continued until resolution of the formal disciplinary action. A complaint has already been filed. We should be able to proceed at the next commission meeting, absent witness unavailability. Proper notice of this hearing was provided. Pursuant to NRS 233B.121, with a registered letter being mailed to the respondent on February 1st, 2019, to the address he provided to the Commission. And with that, I would submit.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Deputy Attorney General Denver?
No, Chairman.
Okay. I look for a motion for the approval of the extension of the temporary suspension.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the notice of temporary extension of temporary suspension for Ray Perez.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 5, hearing on the extension of a temporary suspension for boxer Pedro Rodriguez.
And good morning, Mike Detmer from the Attorney General's Office on behalf of the Executive Director, Bob Bennett. In January 2019, the respondent, Pedro Rodriguez, was licensed by the Athletic Commission as a professional boxer. On January 17, 2019, prior to his contest at the MGM Grand, he submitted a urine sample, the urinalysis of which tested positive for nandrolone, furosemide, and a high TE ratio. Pursuant to NRS 467.117, the Executive Director temporarily suspended the respondent's license on February 17, 2019 for a period of 10 days. It is now being requested that the suspension be continued pending resolution of a formal disciplinary action. A complaint has already been filed. We should be able to proceed at the next commission meeting absent witness unavailability. Proper notice of this hearing was provided pursuant to NRS 233B.121 with a registered letter being mailed to the respondent on February 1st, 2019 to the address he provided to the commission. And with that, I submit.
Okay, any questions for Attorney General Detmer? All right, I look for a motion for approval on the extension of the temporary suspension.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 6, hearing on a disciplinary complaint or any alternative, hearing on the proposed adjudication agreement for kickboxer Bruno Gazzani.
Good morning, Mike Detmer from the Attorney General's Office on behalf of the Executive Director, Bob Bennett. On January 4th, 2019, Executive Director Bob Bennett filed a disciplinary complaint against the respondent for testing positive for marijuana metabolites prior to his bout on November 16, 2019. Under the regulations, a first-time anti-doping offense can carry a suspension that can range from 9 to 24 months and a purse fine that can range from 15 to 30%. Typically, the Commission would render a 9-month suspension with a 15% fine. However, the Commission has the discretion to deviate from the standard by no more than 50% with a prompt admission to the violation. Under these circumstances, in the instant case, given precedent, the regulations, and the fact that the respondent did give an admission to the violation, we have reached a proposed adjudication agreement, which is before the Commission today for its consideration. Under the terms of the agreement, there would be a 6-month suspension which would expire on May 16, 2019. He'd pay a fine of $300, and the result of the draw would be switched to a no contest. Additionally, the suspension would remain in effect until all the fines and fees were paid or there's a payment plan that's been approved by the Director. These are a generalized statement of the terms and the facts. The specifics are provided more fully within the document itself. With that, I would submit, and I haven't answered any questions the Commission may have.
I don't have any questions. It appears this rides with past practice and within our guidelines. If there's any other questions from the Commissioners, please ask Attorney General Detmer.
I don't have any questions.
No, agreed. No questions.
No questions.
Okay, great. I look for a motion of approval on item number 6.
I make a motion to approve the agreement from item number 6 with Mr. Gazzani.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Attorney General Detmer, is this the one I'm supposed to sign?
No, Chairman. I believe we have the originals. Oh, I correct that. I guess that is the one you're supposed to sign.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Perfect.
Oh, you have it. I'm sorry, Chairman. It's not the same. You have it. Let me approach.
Please. Okay, great. Moving on. Item number 7, hearing on the disciplinary complaint or on the alternative, hearing on a proposed adjudication agreement for the second Dillon Danis.
Good morning, Chairman. Mike Detmer from the Attorney General's Office. On behalf of the Executive Director, Bob Bennett, I believe Defense Counsel is present for Mr. Danis. But if the Commission would like, I can go into the proposed negotiations.
Well, I would, let's see here. Good morning, Mr. Mersch. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Executive Director Bennett, Michael Mersch for Mr. Danis. Thanks for letting me be here today.
Thank you for being here. If okay with you, should I let Attorney General Detmer read the proposed adjudication agreement? I'm assuming.
Yes, sir, that'd be fine with us.
I'm assuming that you're okay with it since your client's signature is on the document.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Please proceed.
On October 6, 2018, the respondent, Dillon Danis, participated in UFC 229 as a second to Conor McGregor in his contest against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Following the contest, Nurmagomedov moved towards McGregor's corner while pointing at and exchanging words with individuals located there, with Mr. Danis being amongst them. At or about this time, the respondent, through hand gestures, challenged Nurmagomedov to come to him, to leave the octagon. And by hand gestures, what I'm referring to is with his hand and fingers waved towards him as if to say, come to him. Subsequently, Mr. Nurmagomedov jumped over the octagon fence and into the gallery where they engaged in a physical confrontation, and then they were separated by event security. However, after they were separated, the respondent, in one or more instances, had to be physically restrained from participating in the ensuing melee. And this is at a time when event security was actively trying to control the situation and extinguish it. Additionally, the respondent, and again this is after he had been separated from the melee, made obscene gestures towards a member or members of Mr. Nurmagomedov's team and or the public, to it extending his middle finger towards him or them. Again, this is at a time when event security was actively trying to create or maintain peace within the arena. On January 7th, and then on February 1st, the executive director filed a disciplinary complaint, and then an amended disciplinary complaint, respectively, as these actions constitute foul and unsportsmanlike conduct. The proposed adjudication agreement, which is before the Commission today, is for proposed resolution of that complaint. Under the terms of the agreement, there would be a 7-month suspension, which would expire on May 6, 2019. And he would also pay a fine in the amount of $7,500, and he would remain suspended until that fine is paid in full, or that there's a payment plan that's been approved by the director. Again, these are a generalized statement of the terms and the facts. The specifics are provided more fully within the document itself, but I'm happy to answer any questions the Commission may have in these regards.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Deputy Attorney General Detmer?
Deputy Attorney General, do we have any precedent for this type of action?
The event itself is fairly unique. I mean, you can find things which are tangentially related to it, but as a whole, it's fairly unique. And the endeavor is to find a combination of suspension time, fines that addresses a creates a fair and just resolution of the facts and circumstances as presented.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Attorney General, I think that following the wise words of our chairman from last month's meeting, I think it's maybe just important to recognize that this disciplinary action and agreement, proposed agreement, is focused on just the actions of that night that are outlined in the complaint and proposed agreement, and not any activity leading up to the event. That the proposed agreement is focused on a very short period of time, but and actions that relate to it. So I think that was helpful last month when you took us and everybody through that this, what we have jurisdiction over and what we are providing a proposed agreement on is just those actions.
And that is 100%, Mike Detmer for the record, and that is 100% correct.
And then I just have one other question or statement that I think I know the answer to, but for the record, Mr. Danis is both a fighter or combatant and a corner, so this temporary extension and fine relates to any license application for the state of Nevada.
For Nevada, that's correct, Commissioner, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the actions here, the way I'm, when reading and watching everything that happened, it really wasn't the action of, hey, come on. That happens all the time in the sport. It happens at every UFC press conference. It happens at every weigh-in. You know, that stuff happens. Those verbal, hey, not verbal. We're gonna get it on here. It's really more of the post response. And the item number 8 in the factual allegations, I think that kind of lays out here where the respondent could have acted differently and not found themselves in this position. So. Okay, Commissioner Hahn, do you have any questions on the phone?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, well, Mr. Dever, do you have anything you'd like to add, or?
I do not.
Mr. Mersch,
No, Mr. Chairman, as Mr. Danis has indicated, by signing this agreement, he's amenable to the terms and conditions set forth therein. And again, I just wanted to thank Deputy Attorney General Detmer, represents the Commission in a very professional manner, and I wanted to thank him for that.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, then I would look for a motion to approve the proposed adjudication agreement on item number 7 for second Dillon Danis.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Item number 8 was removed, so we move on to item number 9, hearing on a disciplinary complaint, or the alternative, hearing on a proposed adjudication agreement for boxer Sean Miller.
And good morning, Mike Detmer from the Attorney General's Office on behalf of the Executive Director, Bob Bennett. On November 19, 2018, the Executive Director filed a disciplinary complaint against the respondent for testing positive for oxycodone and oxymorphone prior to his bout on October 12, 2018. As mentioned previously, an anti-doping violation like this would carry a suspension that can range from 9 to 24 months and a 15 to 30%. However, based on the Commission's regulations, precedent, and Mr. Miller's admission to the violation, the parties have reached a proposed adjudication agreement, which is before the Commission today. Under the terms include a 6-month suspension, which would expire on April 12, 2019, a $750 fine, that's 750, that is going to be changed to a no contest. Lastly, the suspension would remain in effect until all fines and fees are paid in full, or there's a payment plan that's been approved by the Director. As always, this is a generalized statement of the facts and the terms of the agreement. The specifics are provided more fully within the document itself. With that, I would submit to the Commission and answer any questions it may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from any of the Commissioners on item number 9?
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. The agreement terms, I don't believe includes the attorney fees. Was that taken into consideration when negotiating the agreement?
Yes, Commissioner.
Do we have any past precedent where that has been negotiated as part of the settlement agreement?
Yes, Commissioner. There are, in fact, multiple settlement agreements where that has been something that has varied as far as whether or not it becomes a term within the agreement itself. For example, in Mr. Danis' case, that was not included.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
Any questions? Okay, great. I look for
Chairman?
Yes.
I just have one comment for the future. Deputy Attorney General Detmer and myself have discussed the Attorney General fees, and I appreciate Commissioner Alonso bringing that up. That'll be more of a standard practice that we will incorporate into the future disciplinary findings, that they are itemized and the respondent will have to pay accordingly, separate and from the actual fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I look for a motion on item number 9.
Motion to approve the settlement agreement for item number 9 by Sean Miller.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, motion passes unanimously. Okay. Moving on, item number 10, last item of the day, UFC quarterly report to the Commission regarding the utilization of the glove sensors and Ultimate Fighting Championship events held in Las Vegas for possible action.
Hello, Ember Moore from UFC and Guy Shifton from Ember Moore from UFC and Guy Shifton from HEED here to present, and may I approach with?
Please.
So we're here to provide an update and to request the continued use of the data sensors for the 2019 season here in Las Vegas for our events. So we're going to walk you through quickly current status. We are continuing to work on the sensors to get those smaller, but they are currently encased in the flexible silicone that everyone's familiar with. They now have a small light that indicates whether or not the battery is working. That is the only change since the last time the Commission has reviewed those. Multiple tests have been conducted, both testing and live events. We are continuing to collect that data, and it has been used solely for internal purposes to date. During live events, we have made a significant impact on our R&D process. So our punch force has improved by 9% since the last presentation. Punch speed quality has improved by 5%. Both of those we now find to be at desired levels and considered complete. The punch detection has improved by 4%, the type classification by 8%, and the landed and missed classification by 3%. These are still in development and are not considered complete. The data handling and security, I know this is something that had been requested, so this is set up to connect specifically to UFC's network on site. All of this data is transferred through a UFC network to a cloud-based platform. This is stored in Europe and complies with the GDPR and some of the most stringent regulations. Europe has the strongest data compliance regulations, so we are continuing to store data there. Additional data-driven technologies that have been in test that are not in Octagon, just for awareness and full disclosure: audio analysis of audience reaction and the video analysis of athlete movement in the Octagon during bouts. This detects their location and their speed of movement. What we're requesting today is continued use of the sensors starting on March 2nd at 2:35 and for all subsequent Vegas events in 2019. And then we will continue to develop and keep the Commission apprised of all other statistics that we are in the process of gathering. The consumer-facing mobile application, you can see on page 3, this shows you screenshots of what that would look like. This application is a secondary screen. It is an app and it highlights key things. It does not follow the fight. It shows highlights throughout the fight.
You made a lot of progress.
Yes.
Not easy, huh?
No, it's been quite the road.
When do you expect that you would be to a place where you would be considering wanting to present this to the public while the fight's going on?
So for 2:35, we would like to go to the public on the app with these key highlights.
Oh, okay. I didn't get that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's with the statistics that are completed only. Correct.
So let me get that straight again. Do you want to take this? Do you want to take it to the public on the app only for statistics that are completed?
Correct.
As in post-fight, these stats are completed. Here's a summary of the fight.
It occurs during the fight, but it is only key highlights.
Which metrics are you planning to put on the app for the? It sounds like it's real time during the fight.
There is a slight delay, but yes, it is essentially real time. Fan reactions, which are obtained outside of the octagon, the fighter location and speed, which is obtained via camera, and then the punch, force, impact, and speed. So those are
the last one, punch, force, and what?
The force of impact and
Force
speed. So those are the only two that we feel are in an acceptable level of accuracy. So that's page 1. If you look at punch force and punch speed, we believe are now considered complete. The other 3 are not. And the key here is that these are highlights. It is not continual throughout the entire fight, the whole fight. It's highlight moments.
Is there a numeric metric for a highlight moment, or is it at the discretion of what you consider a highlight moment?
It is at the discretion.
So somebody will be watching the fight, see a good connection on a strike, and go, that's a highlight moment, take that data and publish it. So it's pretty delayed then. It's not.
It will be about 2 minutes.
2 minutes delayed from, I can see the metrics behind that highlight moment is what you're.
Yeah.
Correct.
So not by any means real time, and not all of it.
Not all of it, definitely not. And no, not real time in that it's not happening within 3 to 5 seconds.
The data is calculated in real time, live and everything, but it is stored in the databases and only the highlights are taken off from there.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just could you give us a little more color on the validation process of the 2 metrics you're going to present on the mobile app? Kind of how you determine you had improvement in 9% or 5%?
That's analyzing the data from every fight, and literally they take the data, and then there is a team that sits and watches the film and matches the film to the data to make sure that the data is accurately collecting from the sensor and interpreting correctly. So from the first time we did that until where we are now, that's been the percentage of improvement in the algorithm and the way that it reads.
In addition, we have a parallel track that performs these validations in a lab setting to make sure that what we see in the live tests and in the live environment really correlates with what would be expected from the lab environment. And that's the process that has been done over the last 2 years almost. So it was about a year purely in the lab setting, and since your approval a year ago in the live environment.
So you're getting better correlations from your lab to real life on the force piece, okay.
Is the heat fan engagement mobile app tied to the UFC mobile app?
No. When you say the UFC mobile app, it's an AGT Heat app, and there is a UFC section within that app.
Okay. So, but if you have the UFC mobile app, Fight Pass, etc., it will not be shown to those subscribers or?
No, you would have to get the Heat app.
Is there plans to show, obviously that can be a live feed to any of the screens in the arena as well, so is there plans to take advantage of that opportunity?
The data from the gloves in real time into the arena, no.
The mobile app, what's showing on the mobile app, will it be shown anywhere in the arena other than in individuals?
No, it's going to be an individual screen and app.
How many people are currently using the app or have the app?
The UFC app?
0?
No, and it hasn't launched.
So this would be the first time to launch that?
Correct.
Is it free or is it paid for? That's just a curiosity question.
Right. Are you going to be promoting the launch of it as it relates to UFC 235?
Very minimally. This is the first launch, so the goal is to get it functioning. We'll make people aware that there is an app, but it's not going to be broadly promoted at this point.
I got one question. Can't let this go without me asking a question.
Go ahead.
No, I forgot what I was going to ask. So with this app being launched and showing significant strikes, is it strictly statistics and the strike, or is there any commentators behind it?
What you see on page 3 is essentially
What you
what
get?
it is, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's no vocals to this. It's essentially what you see here on this page, or the screenshots of the app and what it would look like.
So you have these little blurbs in the middle that are just comments to let the fan know there's a strike of that force, and that was either in response or it, the other one is, setting the pace on the offensive. Okay.
Have you been sharing the data with the fighters themselves? I know we've talked about that in the past.
We have not yet. We are just now getting to that accuracy point, but there is discussion as to what that report will look like, and we will be sharing with them this. Their own, not each other's, but their own data.
Right.
Can obviously, I'm assuming the answer would be yes to this, but can the commission have access to the app as everybody, right? So we can all have it that night and kind of see what's going on.
Yes, we can send you all the information. So
that would be great. If we move forward with this, that would be good. Okay. Commissioner Haw, do you have any questions on the telephone?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, a little tougher to follow on over the phone, but no, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to add? All right. Well, I think it's an interesting. We obviously put a lot of time and money into this. We knew that the end game was going to be to eventually present this to the public. It wouldn't be fun to have all this data and nobody know about it. I think that this is like X-Files. No, I'd say it happened a little fast on me this morning. However, I understand where you're. I feel more comfortable here understanding what you're asking for and what you're doing. And I can't say that I have any major objection to it. I kind of actually agree with it that it's probably the right way to start putting this out there lightly, kind of post the event, and it'll be an interesting test to just watch it in real time as the night is going on and what the app is doing and what it's saying. And I don't have any real major objection to it. It doesn't seem like it's broadcasted in the arena. It's not broadcasted on television. Obviously, people can get the app. I think you're going to do it small. Maybe you have a couple thousand or a couple hundred or who knows what you have, but I don't have any major concerns with just these two sets of published data. I mean, everything else you're really publishing in here it's kind of commentary that you can kind of see by, if you were in the arena, you'll hear the same things that you're going to be telling you. Hey, the crowd went crazy. Hey, I already know that. That happened 2 minutes ago. I was sitting here. That's where the fighter's moving. We're watching that on television. So the first two are kind of, they're cool, but not necessarily. I don't think they sway the audience's opinion. And then these are more informational on impact moments, which I think is different than publishing every strike, every blow. And I think it's an interesting place to start and see how it goes. But I'm very open to everybody else's thoughts.
In your testing, have you noticed any correlations that with the fighters that have surprised you that might surface after March 2nd, when this data is open to the public, that maybe the commissioners aren't anticipating?
Can you give me an example of what you mean, like, are we seeing something happen that, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, I'm just, you have a set of data now. Mm-hmm. You've got your regular fighters, and I'm saying, is the data showing something that's going on that maybe we wouldn't have known without the data? In your experience, that could come up after the fight that we would have to react to?
No, not no. It shares a lot more context and information on what we see is happening, but for now we have to see.
No surprises?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few more questions.
Sure.
Is the plan for the March 2nd fight to have this available for every single fight on the card?
Every fight that has sensors, yes.
And then, is it UFC's plan for 2019 to expand the highlights of statistics in the on the mobile app from just the 3 that you've highlighted with punch force, of impact and speed, fighter location, and speed cam action?
If we got to some place that we were happy with the statistics we were getting in some of the other areas, then we would look to potentially include those. But we are not at a point that we consider those final. So the punch detection, the type classification, those are not at a point that we consider those final.
So Chairman, does it make sense to have consideration if this, if the possible action is to approve the continuation of this effort, is there value in us having some additional maybe requirements to move forward to add other public highlighted information?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that if I'm reading the request today, not necessarily as it's written on the agenda per se, but as it's presented on page 4, the UFC is requesting, this is their quarterly report and update, and they are requesting the utilization to the public through this application, not published in the arena or on television or pay-per-view, through an application for these 4 data points or these 4 screens is the way I would look at this. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, the request is to continue using the sensors for 235, at which we would go live with the state, correct?
With these 4 screens?
Correct.
Okay. And then, so I would say 100% that as from what develops on page 2 turns into a screen or a data point on, I'm sorry, yeah, page 2, if that develops into a 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th screen on page 4, they would have to come back every time for that, absolutely. So we could understand that. But I don't think there's any objection on the UFC's part to that. I mean, we knew entering into this a year ago that this is where this was going to go. And I think this is a very walk before you run approach. So you have confidence in the 2 data points that you're putting out there. It's not real time. It's not gone all over the place yet. I mean, I think we should expect, as this will morph and change as we watch this, we can come back for additional requests to get broader with the information and broader with the amount of information. And I think that was the intent from day 1. So we should all expect that that's where this is going to go.
Right. Yeah, I think that I agree with you, Chairman. I think that it's important that we have clear understanding of progress along the way. And I'm surprised that we're already at a public viewing, quite honestly, today. So, you know, if there's an expansion before the next quarterly report, what we're saying is that we will want to know about it.
Yes, and we apologize. There have been some conflicts, so we intended to get here with a report earlier, and we're unable to do so due to conflicts, so apologies for that.
Oh, no apology necessary. I just wanted to be clear, so there's no surprises.
Yeah.
If you can get to us in the future before,
Sure.
a week before would be good,
Sure.
just so we know. Even if it's not a formal, we want this, but it's what we're thinking.
Okay.
We're going this path would be helpful. Even if it's just informational, hey,
Sure.
FYI, we're thinking we're getting close on these 2 data points. We think we'd like to expand how we're going to present this publicly.
Sure.
With any of those types of things would be helpful. Okay. So if there's no objections, what I would say is I would look for a motion for the approval of the utilization of the glove sensors as presented in the documentation, which is labeled privileged and confidential, to the Commission for the data points and the screens on item number 4 through the application only for UFC 235. And then, in addition to that would be as the desire to expand upon the data that's presented, or in the fashion in which the data is presented, that they would need to come back for approval of any expansion or modification of what's been presented here today. Does that seem like an appropriate motion? All right, so I'd look for a motion for approval of what I just laid out.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, good luck, look forward to seeing this Saturday.
Would you mind just letting Executive Director Bennett know of any use in other states so that we can follow along as well?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
All right, is there any public comment in the room? See no public comment in the room?
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Is there any public comment on the phone? Okay, and hearing no public comment on the phone, we'll close the line. The only thing
The conference is now in listen-only.
I have is on the chairman's report, which is really more informational for the public. We will be releasing the John Jones test, but we will not do that until sometime very, very close to the night of the fight. So if you could stop requesting that data from the executive director, it would be helpful because it's not going to come out until we're ready to send it out and have all of that properly put together, but it will be published before the fight. Are there any matters for future agendas from any commissioners? Okay, I look for a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.